Alright, hello Guild Wars 2 and Guild Wars 1 and soon to be Guild Wars 3 gamers. Muckluck here. We have got a little bit of news related to the future of the Guild Wars franchise. I've got a cough drop in my mouth because my throat is messed up, so if you see that, it's not candy. They did a live stream on Twitch, and it'll probably be in the YouTube VOD later, where Colin Johansson and Josh Davis, which you can see their titles on the screen, studio head and also game director, and they were answering a whole bunch of pre-selected questions from, I believe, the forums. They did not take any questions from the live chat. They also had a lot of technical difficulties. You could see right here, they're trying to fix the microphone. They were going from cannot be heard to deafeningly loud and peaking all over the place. I actually had to download a Chrome extension to be able to turn the volume up to 350% to be able to hear them and get through the end of it. It was pretty rough. It's not Colin or Josh's fault. It's whoever the sound guy's fault is. However, we're not here to focus on that. I'm just letting you know why I did not do a video. It's just me reacting to it. It's because it was kind of a train wreck. But I do have notes. Yay, notes. All right, so what did I think was worth writing down from watching this whole thing? So first off, this is kind of already known, but the Guild Wars 3 beta starts late next year. They've already mentioned that, so we're mentioning that again. Moving on. They have clarified they intend to return to annual expansions for Guild Wars 2 after Guild Wars 3. Recently, I believe a forum post or a Reddit post, they said annual updates or annual releases, something like that. And a lot of people are like, he didn't say expansions. We're going back to Living World. They're giving up on the game. The game's dead. Blah! You know, and they were like, no, we just misspoke. Reddit, calm down. We intend to return to annual expansions for Guild Wars 2 after the release of Guild Wars 3. So, that is a thing. Someone asked me to move this a little bit. All right, next up. Guild Wars Reforged, for now, will not be in the Hall of Monuments connecting to Guild Wars 3. So Guild Wars 1 gives rewards in Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2, and Guild Wars 2 will give rewards in Guild Wars 2 and Guild Wars 3. That is the plan for the Hall of Monuments. There is currently not a plan to connect Guild Wars 1 to Guild Wars 3. However, they are reviewing the possibility of Guam carrying over to Guild Wars 3. Guam is a very hard to earn title in Guild Wars 1 that is called God Walking Amongst Mere Mortals. And if you earn it in Guild Wars 1, you also get it in Guild Wars 2. And they know a lot of people treasure the time they spent on that, and they are considering adding it to Guild Wars 3. There is a new type of content coming to Guild Wars Reforged. No details yet. I think they might have slipped when they said that, but they did not elaborate on that. I do not know what it is. They talked about, someone said, with the Desert Borderlands being not greatly received, what do you guys plan to do to avoid that with the new World v. World Borderlands that you have coming out? And they said, with the Desert Borderlands, gliding had just come out. And they wanted to incorporate gliding in the Desert Borderlands. So they gave it a lot of verticality. And what they said they should have done was considered what would make the best experience for World v. Worlders and not focused on what's the best experience for a glider. So, Desert Borderlands, it ended up being far too big. It was far too long to respawn and get back to fights, lots of running, tougher to find fights because everyone was so spread out because it's larger, it was too vertical. They were focused on letting players glide and built around that feature instead of what was good for World v. World players. So, they said that they feel like they've learned a lot since they released the Desert Borderlands compared to the original World v. World maps, and they will do better on the next one. Okay. How to ensure that Guild Wars 2 metas remain populated after Guild Wars 3. So, obviously, if you're on a map to do a map meta, if the game has a low enough player count, then there's not enough people to do the meta, and you can't get it done. So, they said they anticipate millions of players are going to visit Guild Wars 2 going forward, partly because of the Hall of Monuments. And then they went on to talk about something that we've heard before, but is no less impressive. When Hall of Monuments 1.0 came out, that was a way to make Guild Wars 1 players try Guild Wars 2 so they wouldn't feel like their time was wasted because they played the first game before the second game. However, it had an unexpected side effect that even 10 years later, there are Guild Wars 2 players going back and playing Guild Wars 1 to earn the stuff from the Hall of Monuments. So it has made a symbiotic relationship between the two games. So, because of the Hall of Monuments, they anticipate that Guild Wars 2 will still get growth even after Guild Wars 3 comes out. And then they went on and gave some very juicy stats. Just since Guild Wars 3 was announced, Guild Wars 2 has had a 45% increase in players in the last week. I'm pretty sure that's what he said because his mic kept cutting out. Saturday had the largest amount of new players of any day since the Steam launch. They set a record back in Visions of Eternity for the number of players coming back after over a year away. On Saturday, they crushed that record by more than double. So just announcing Guild Wars 3 has made Guild Wars 2 get a massive growth spurt, which is amazing. So, I thought it was returning players. Yeah, so this one was, VOE was players coming back after over a year away. Those are returning players. Yeah, that part is returning. I tried to write it down word for word. I think I did. So that is awesome. And honestly, like I don't think metas being dead is a concern unless it's a meta the community has just decided they're not interested in. Like Serpent's Ire. Like there are some metas that they like. There's so many metas in the game, right? There's like 100 of them. So the ones that are the least rewards, the community has just decided like, look, that one's trash. And it happens at the same time as that one, and it pays better. I'm doing that one. So there's some that the community has just decided they don't do. So beyond those, I don't think it's going to be a problem. Someone asked, is mobile a long-term focus or an experiment? And the answer was Guild Wars Reforged is the focus. Mobile is not a focus. It is simply another platform that they can release Reforged on. Then someone asked, is Guild Wars 2 ever going to be on console or mobile? No. They said over the lifetime of Guild Wars 2, 3 separate times, they have looked at the possibility of releasing it on consoles, the ones that were big at those times. And every time it came back to the answer, no. It's not feasible because of the way Guild Wars 2 was built. However, Guild Wars 3 is being built. So Guild Wars 3 is being built from the ground up with including consoles in mind. So they plan to have Guild Wars 3 on PC and PS5 right at launch, and I don't know if they're going to do more later on. Then somebody said, what are you expecting to have for Guild Wars 2 in the next 5 to 10 years? I feel like this was kind of a weird question, but I wrote it down. Lots of modernization. Lots of optimizations, more places to explore, more storylines to story, more threads to close loops, and they are starting development on the next Guild Wars 2 thing next year, but we won't hear about it until after Guild Wars 3. And not during this interview, but in a post like in the last week, they mentioned that most yearly expansions take about 18 months to build. So that goes hand in hand with that. So if they, start making something next year, and then within 18 months of that, Guild Wars 3 is finished, and then they can release the new Guild Wars 2 thing after that. I would also say it would make total sense as a company if they don't do those close together. Like if they release Guild Wars 3, I'm just going to make up a date. If they release it on like a January 1st, it would make sense for them to wait until maybe like at least April, because you'll have some people that'll play both. Like Path of Exile, they'll release a new league for PoE 1, and they'll wait a couple months before they release a new league for PoE 2, and they stagger them. They go back and forth because some of their player base enjoys playing both of those. They don't want to compete with themselves any more than that. Then they said that there is a huge update for Guild Wars Reforged on mobile devices this summer. And they said by the end of this year, the new Hall of Monuments 2.0 will have its first release, which is supposed to, I believe, coincide with the core game, as well as have a whole bunch of bug fixes that have been on the back burner for way too long for the core game. And one example they gave in a previous broadcast was the Zaitan fight, which, Zaitan, I still say, is the coolest looking dragon. Amazing model. However, everyone remembers how silly the climax of that was. I think that's it. We watched this for an hour and a half, and that's what I wrote down. There was a few other things they talked about, but in my opinion, it was all, it was questions that people asked that were already answered by recent blogs and Reddit posts and things like that. So, the other questions that were covered during that time were ones that we already answered in the last couple of news videos that I have put out. So I didn't write that stuff down because it would just be repeating the same stuff. So that is what we've got for today's Guild Wars franchise update live stream. If you got any questions, problems, thoughts, concerns, put it in the comment section down below. This was the stuff that I felt like was worth putting on blast. So yeah, put it in the comment section. I'll fight you there.